Even the Void Dwellers were patient until humans made appointments. Distant and primitive entities that dwell between stars become exasperated at the imposition of regimented schedules and cosmic affairs, when regarded from scales whose temporal cadence resembles the ages of geological epochs. The premise posits that humanity has progressed out into space and begun organizing cosmic happenings, such as solar flares and gravitational phenomena, in order to synchronize their interstellar civilization, but their specific schedules are demanding the universe meet these deadlines, bending and twisting empirical reality to conform. The occasional cosmic scheduling messes with the natural order of time and space, and this doesn't sit well with the ancient entities known as the Void Dwellers who exist in the void between stars. As temporal paradoxes threaten to unravel causality itself, Dr. Maya Chen joins forces with Commander Reese Caldwell and the Void Dwellers to initiate an emergency protocol that cancels every known celestial appointment, with the forcing of the natural rhythms of the universe no longer mandated by human will and perspective. Humanity begins to learn how to work with and around these massive cosmic elements. Reese Caldwell had been staring at the same holographic display for 3 hours, 17 different countdown clocks ticking toward zero as the minutes crawled by, but each of those timers, in turn, stood for some celestial phenomenon, each one a human oddity in the cosmic order to which they had somehow learned to assign schedules and draw from like a well. Solar flares from Proxima Centauri, a gravitational lensing window from the Horsehead Nebula when the emissions from the binary pulsars in System J1847 would be oriented for maximal data transfer. However, unknown to Reese, somewhere in the great emptiness between those stars, something very, very old was becoming very, very annoyed. The Void Dwellers had existed before the first star burned. They were shapeless, patient boundless awareness stretching across the darkness of the cosmos. They had observed galaxies swirl into form, civilizations rise and fall in numbers too great to comprehend, and the passage of ages measured not in ticks and tocks or decades, but in the grand ballet of stellar evolution. 1,000,000 years was little more than an afterthought to them. The names they called themselves were words no creature made of matter and time could pronounce. A rough translation would be the waiters in the interstice, and even that didn't do them justice. They lived in the voids between all things where stars couldn't exist, where blackness held no light, between heartbeats, between star and star, between cause and effect, between it all. For billions of years they had watched the universe with the calm patience of creatures who understood that things happen when they are meant to happen. Stars would burn out when they were ready, planets would create their own rhythms, an ancient heartbeat would pulse through the cosmic web. There was no reason to rush, no reason to impose arbitrary limits on natural processes. Then humans arrived. Initially, humanity was quite entertaining to the Void Dwellers. These tiny beings, chained to a single world and living for only a few decades, seemed perpetually in a hurry. They darted around their world like insects, always rushing toward some goal that would be insignificant in the span of the galaxy. It was endearing, in a way like watching children pretend to be grown-ups. However, as humanity spilled forth from Earth, things began to change. These beings did not merely roam the stars, they began to schedule them. Dr. Maya Chen was the first to realize the anomaly. She was stationed on the research vessel Kronos, the finest deep space observatory humanity had ever built, located at the boundary of the solar system where the solar wind ended and the interstellar medium began. Her job was to monitor what that sector of science called void fluctuations, little ripples in the so-called vacuum of space between the stars. The readings had remained stable for months. The nothingness was never really nothing, of course. It was filled with sparse hydrogen atoms, cosmic dust, the occasional stray electron. But recently, Maya had been detecting something else, anomalies that had no business being there in the quantum foam. Ripples in space-time that felt almost ... intentional. Run analysis again, she said to her AI assistant, Aria. Analysis complete. These patterns remain unchanged from the previous reading. Quantum activity is occurring in what should be empty vacuum. Maya rubbed her temples. She had been having headaches recently, odd dreams in which she was falling through an endless void while something vast and patient watched her descend, some 16 light-years away. Aboard the orbital station Kepler Prime, Mission Commander Reese Caldwell faced a far different set of problems. The intricate schedule that had guided humanity's expansion into space was falling apart like pieces of a broken clockwork. A solar flare from Proxima Centauri, scheduled to arrive at 0800 hours, had arrived 6 hours early. The quantum probability window that enabled faster-than-light communications through the Horsehead Nebula was fluctuating unpredictably. The signals from the binary pulsar system that humanity used as a cosmic lighthouse were arriving 30 seconds early. To most people, 30 seconds might seem like the blink of an eye, but when it's the difference between coordinating hundreds of ships across dozens of star systems, 30 seconds might as well be 30 years. Status report, Reese demanded as she walked into the command center. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his console, sweat beading on his brow. Ma'am, we have 17 different timeline breaches across the sector. Automated cargo ships are arriving at stations before the stations are ready to receive them. The data burst from the mining operation at Alpha Centauri came through before we even requested it. It's almost like the universe is running fast. Reese felt a chill run down her spine. Running fast wasn't scientifically possible. The universe had certain immutable laws governing its behavior. Stars burned at predictable rates. Gravity pulled objects along determined paths. Time itself was constant, unchanging. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. In the empty spaces between galaxies, the Void Dwellers stirred. For the first time in their existence, they experienced a strange foreign emotion their race had never known. Annoyance. What humans might have called the Prime Dweller, though. It was nameless and without need of boundaries, coalesced its awareness into an approximation of focus. It reached into the quantum foam, brushing the consciousness of its innumerable kin dispersed throughout the void. The short-lived grow bold. It transmitted, though transmission was too narrow a term for the pure transfer of concept that occurred. Between them, they seek to bind that which runs free. Another voice old even by Void Dweller standards responded. Let them organize their little lives. What concern is it to us? They schedule us, the Prime Dweller replied, and for the first time, the endless patience of the Void Dwellers reached its limit. Dr. Maya Chen was beginning to understand the problem. Humanity had become too good at predicting the universe. They had charted the rhythms of stars, measured gravitational forces, and penciled the cycles of the cosmos into appointment books. What they hadn't realized was that by observing these things, they were also influencing them. Quantum mechanics had taught them that observation changed things. But no one had thought this rule would apply to massive celestial events. No one had accounted for the fact that the cosmos itself might be listening to their predictions and rushing to meet their deadlines. That it was while Maya was deep in her data analysis that she felt it. A presence pressing into her mind like a massive hand cradling her consciousness. For a moment, she existed elsewhere, suspended in a perfectly empty void that stretched beyond her perception of nothing. And in that nothingness, she felt something looking back at her. Why do you measure us? The knowledge didn't come through her ears but landed directly in her mind, carrying the weight of geological ages. Maya tried to scream, but there was no atmosphere, no medium for sound in the void. Instead, she responded with pure thought. We measure to understand, we understand to survive. Survival. The presence examined the concept like a child studying an interesting insect. You think in moments, we think in eternities. Why must your seconds impose order on our forever? And then Maya understood. They weren't just predicting cosmic events, they were forcing them to happen on human timelines. The universe was straining to reshape itself around their schedules. Gasping, she returned to her body, hearing Arya's voice calling her with mechanical concern. Maya looked at her instruments. The void fluctuations had changed. There were no longer random disturbances in the quantum foam. There were messages. In the middle of a crisis briefing, Reese watched every screen in the command center go dark. Then, slowly, text began to appear, not transmitted through any recognized communication channel, but manifesting directly on the displays, as if written by an unseen hand. Humans of the short-lived realm, your scheduling disrupts ancient flows. You compress into moments that which was meant to unfold over eons. You bind with deadlines that which was meant to flow freely. We have been patient, but even we have limits. Lieutenant Torres was frantically trying to trace the transmission's origin. It's not coming from any known source, ma'am. It's just ... appearing. More words materialized. We are the Void Dwellers. We exist in the spaces between your stars, in the pauses between your thoughts. You learned to predict the dance of the cosmos, and we watched as the universe contorted itself to meet your predictions. This cannot continue. Reese felt her mouth go dry. Are you saying you're responsible for the timeline disruptions? The universe seeks harmony. When you schedule a solar flare, the star strains to comply. When you predict a gravitational lensing event, space itself warps to meet your timeline. But these adjustments create ripples, disturbances in the fabric of reality. We feel these distortions as pain. The implications hit Reese like a physical blow. Humanity's expansion across the universe wasn't just exploration and colonization. They had inadvertently been torturing cosmic beings that predated their solar system. "What do you want us to do?" she asked. This time the text appeared more slowly, as if something was carefully choosing its words. "Learn to wait. Some things cannot be scheduled. Learn to dance with the universe, rather than force the universe to dance with you." Dr. Maya Chen was desperately trying to establish better communication with the Void Dwellers. She had reconfigured her quantum sensors to listen for the exact frequency of their consciousness, hoping for contact that wouldn't be so jarring. "Can you hear me?" she broadcast into the void. This time the response was gentler, a whisper across the cosmic darkness. "We hear you, brief one. You are different from the others. You listen. Help me understand," Maya said. "Are you telling me that our predictions are causing cosmic events to reschedule themselves?" "Your species has a unique ability," the Void Dweller explained. "You observe, and in observing, you create expectation. The universe, in its nature, seeks to fulfill expectation. When you expect a star to flare at a specific time, the star feels this expectation as a command." Maya felt a chill. "But that's impossible. Stars are massive nuclear furnaces. They can't advance or delay their processes. Time is not as rigid as you believe. We have learned to stretch moments into eternities and compress millennia into heartbeats. Your scheduling is forcing the universe to do the same thing, but in a crude, violent way. Each time we force things into alignment, fractures appear in the cosmic order. Then why didn't you stop us sooner?" "Because we are patient. We waited for your kind to learn wisdom, but patience is not infinite. Your species grows stronger, more demanding. Soon you will break something that cannot be repaired." Maya realized she was trembling. What would break? Time itself, causality, the fundamental mechanisms that support reality. You treat the universe as your employee, scheduling it to your convenience, but the universe was not designed to work this way. Stretch it too far, and it will snap back. An alarm klaxon suddenly blared, cutting the conversation short. Maya's instruments were detecting massive distortions in local spacetime. Something was building a cascade effect, growing larger by the moment. Back on Kepler Prime, Reese stared at her tactical display in growing alarm. The distortions Maya had detected were spreading like ripples on a pond, and they were becoming visible to the naked eye. Stars were flickering, planets were wobbling in their orbits. The carefully maintained schedule that held interstellar civilization together was falling apart. "We're getting reports from all stations in the sector," Ma'am Torres reported. "Automated systems are failing. Ships are arriving at destinations before they've even departed. Communications are being delivered before they're sent." Reese watched, her screens fill with paradoxes. The universe was trying to conform to human-imposed deadlines, creating temporal feedback loops. Cause and effect were becoming tangled, resulting in events that violated the basic laws of physics. "Get me, Dr. Chen," she barked. Maya's grim face filled the screen. "I think I understand what's happening, Commander. The Void Dwellers aren't just complaining about our scheduling, they're warning us about the consequences of pushing the universe too far. Can you stop it?" "Not alone, we need to stop it. All of us, every prediction, every cosmic deadline, every artificial constraint we've tried to impose on a universe that was meant to operate by its own rhythms, it all needs to be cancelled." The decision wasn't easy for Reese. Those schedules were the foundation of humanity's expansion into space. Without the ability to predict and coordinate cosmic events, their interstellar civilization would collapse into chaos. "But if we do that, we'll lose everything we've built out here." "If we don't," Maya replied, "everything that exists will cease to exist." The Prime Dweller was rapidly losing patience. Humanity's scheduling had brought cascading failure to the cosmic order. Stars burned out of sequence. Gravity waves propagated backward through time. What had been a finely tuned ballet of physics was becoming a chaotic mess. Its siblings felt the message. They must choose, abandon their schedules, or watch reality tear itself apart. And if they refuse, asked another presence, then we will have to intervene directly, which will be unpleasant for everyone involved. The Void Dwellers had never before interfered in the affairs of any physical species. They lived in the spaces between, observing but never participating. But if humanity's cosmic calendar continued to strain the fabric of reality to its breaking point, they would have no choice but to act. Maya had managed to stabilize communication with the Void Dwellers and was desperately trying to negotiate a solution. Through her quantum sensors, she could feel the vast intelligences in the void becoming more agitated by the minute. "Please," she pleaded through the connection. We didn't know what we were doing. Time is what you lack, came the response. Every moment your species maintains its schedules, the damage grows worse. These feedback loops will soon become self-sustaining. Reality will attempt to satisfy contradictory deadlines simultaneously. What would that look like? The end of causality. Effect preceding cause. The universe folding in on itself like a serpent swallowing its tail. Everything and nothing existing at once. Maya felt her heart racing. But if we cancel all scheduled operations immediately, people will die. Ships will be stranded. Supply lines to the colonies will be severed. Some will die if you stop. All will die if you continue. It was a terrible choice, but Maya knew what had to be done. She opened a channel to every human facility in the sector. This is Dr. Maya Chen of the Kronos Observatory, initiating Cosmic Emergency Protocol. All scheduled operations are to be suspended immediately. Cancel all predictions based on celestial phenomena. We need to return to reactive, not predictive, navigation. The response was immediate chaos. Protests flooded the communication channels. Ship captains demanded to know how they could navigate without arrival times. Colonial administrators asked how they were supposed to manage supply lines. But Maya had one ally, Commander Reese Caldwell. As military commander for the sector, Reese had the authority to enforce the emergency protocol. Attention all personnel, this is Commander Caldwell. The emergency protocol issued by Dr. Chen is now in effect. Any attempt to maintain scheduled operations will result in immediate intervention. We will enforce this order by any means necessary. The reaction was swift and harsh. Several corporate vessels tried to maintain their scheduled routes and had to be intercepted. Mining operations, insistent on maintaining their precisely timed excavations, required direct intervention from orbital security forces. But as humanity's cosmic schedules slowly ground to a halt, the universe began to relax. The temporal feedback loops began to untangle. Stars resumed their natural rhythms. Planets returned to their proper orbits. The distortions in space-time gradually settled. Maya monitored the void fluctuations on her sensors. Watching the patterns shift from chaotic to increasingly peaceful, the void dwellers were returning to their timeless patience. Better, whispered the voice across the cosmic darkness. The wounds will heal. In time, will you forgive us? Maya asked. Forgiveness is a concept for temporal beings like yourselves. We simply adjust, learn to dance with the universe instead of commanding it, and we will coexist peacefully. Humanity struggled through the cosmic emergency. Travel between star systems became slower and more dangerous without the ability to predict stellar events. Supply lines that had operated with clockwork precision now required massive redundancy and flexibility. The efficient but rigid civilization humanity had built in space gave way to something more organic and adaptable, but there were unexpected benefits. Without cosmic deadlines to meet, scientists began noticing subtleties in stellar behavior that had previously been overlooked. The natural rhythms of pulsars and the slow dance of planetary orbits inspired artists. Composers created symphonies that harmonized with the frequencies of cosmic background radiation. Maya Chen became humanity's first ambassador to the void dwellers, spending her days suspended in the perfect nothingness between stars, learning to perceive time as the ancient beings did. She discovered that patience wasn't the ability to wait, it was the ability to maintain peace while waiting. Reese Caldwell, initially resistant to change, adapted her command style to embrace uncertainty rather than fight it. She learned to make decisions based on probability rather than predetermined schedules, negotiating with the universe rather than trying to control it. Even the humans who had protested the emergency protocol began to appreciate the freedom it offered. They focused on the journey rather than the destination, on experience rather than efficiency, on living rather than simply meeting cosmic deadlines. And in the emptiness between stars, the void dwellers resumed their ancient vigil. They had learned something too, that even the smallest forms of consciousness could have enormous impact on the cosmic order. They began to pay more attention to younger species, offering gentle guidance to those who showed wisdom and patience. Without artificial deadlines looming over everything, the universe sighed and returned to its natural rhythms. Solar flares erupted when they were ready. Gravitational lensing events occurred in their own time. Binary pulsars sang their cosmic songs unbound by human calendars. The chaotic period taught Dr. Maya Chen a valuable lesson. For ages, humanity had taken pride in its ability to predict and control its environment, but true wisdom lay in knowing when to step back, when to blend in rather than stand out, when to flow with forces greater than oneself. For billions of years, the Void Dwellers had waited, but they had not waited passively. They had been active, engaged, aware. They had been witnesses to the universe's unfolding, not its masters, but its students. They had learned to coexist with powers greater than themselves. Perhaps that was the secret to true wisdom, not the ability to bend the universe to your will, but the strength to find your place in its grand design. Maya floated in the starlit vacuum, suspended in the darkness between distant suns, when a presence reached across the void and touched her mind. Not the vastness of the Prime Dweller, but something smaller, more intimate, well-learned. "Little timer," it whispered. "Your species shows promise. Will you teach us?" Maya asked. "Well, we'll share what we have learned. But understand, this wisdom cannot be scheduled. It arrives in its own time, like the birth of a star or the death of a galaxy." Maya smiled, feeling the infinite patience that permeated the void. For the first time in her life, she was content to wait. The universe was on its own schedule, and that schedule was perfect. In the decades that followed, humanity's relationship with the cosmos fundamentally changed. They learned to read natural signs, to flow with celestial tides rather than against them. They discovered that the universe gave much more freely to those who worked with it rather than against it. The Void Dwellers, for their part, stepped back from passive observation and began gently guiding younger civilizations. They had learned that ignorance could be as dangerous as impatience. They began to subtly share their wisdom, not directly, but through influence, touching a few minds here and there, shifting perspectives. Maya Chen, suspended in the void between stars, became the bridge between two very different forms of consciousness. She learned to think in geological time while still caring about human moments. There was room for both, and the universe was patient enough to accommodate either. The emergency protocol that had seemed like a disaster became humanity's greatest gift to itself. They learned to live without the illusion of control, breathing in uncertainty and breathing out wonder at the natural order of things. And somewhere in the dark spaces between galaxies, ancient beings smiled or did whatever passed for smiling. When you existed only as consciousness in the cosmic dark, the universe was vast, patient, and unpredictable. Even for beings who had seen everything, there was always something new to discover. The Void Dwellers had waited billions of years, and they would wait billions more. But now, patience had company. They had partners in the cosmic dance, but intelligent, hasty but learning, human but growing into something greater. The universe was on schedule, and it was right on time. And for the first time in eons, the Void Dwellers looked forward to what would happen next.